It's from Harrison Gorman. And it basically says, a person has 1 million in cash to invest in a property. Would it be wiser to do a $1 million deposit on one property or try for three 330K deposits on 3 properties?
So as you mentioned, I get asked this almost every single day because it's the burning question for most, especially if you've got a fair bit of equity or cash there. And the answer is it actually depends. So there's a pro and con of each one. So let's just say if you use that 1 million and you broke it up into multiple properties. So let's say you could probably get $3 million properties quite reasonably comfortably there. So with $1 million asset, you're going to get a decent lease. So you'll get like a 3-4 year lease, but you're not going to get a huge tenant. So this is going to be most likely like a little warehouse in like a capital city, for instance. So you're going to have a slightly smaller grade tenant. The negatives with smaller grade tenants is they go one or two ways. They either grow and they outgrow the space really quickly, or they close up shop because they're not making money, as most small businesses fail. So you're actually going to have a higher turnover of tenant. The good news is vacancy rates are really tight for those smaller, like little industrial assets and things like that. So most of the stuff I'm buying, we're seeing like less than a month to fill it. So more turnover of tenants, but smaller vacancy period. The other benefit of that is you get to diversify the asset because you get to have 3 different locations, 3 different types of tenants, 3 different leases ending at the same time, at different times. So you mitigate a lot of the risk there as well. And then you've also got 3 different bonds and guarantees and stuff like that. One of the other negatives is you're most likely not going to get a freestanding one unless you go on the outskirts of a capital city or regional town. So you're going to be part of a body corporate, which takes away a lot of your value add opportunities. So you're not going to have like the subdivisions, separating tenancies and things like that. All you can really do is add a mezzanine, for instance, or kind of buy something that's under market rent and push the rent up. So you take away some of that stuff there. The big ones, Andrew, so if you went out and bought a big 3 mil or 3.5 mil, is you actually see more variety. So you start looking at to the big freestanding sites, the multi-tenancy sites, the self-storage sites, which we've got a question on later, even just the blue chip type tenants. So like we're under contract at the moment on like a pet barn at that price point. You can start looking at the McDonald's in regional towns. So you'll see a lot more variety. And because it is a bigger premise potentially, you can get longer leases. You can actually start getting the 5, 10, 15 year lease type one. So bit more security there, way more value add, as I mentioned before. But then the other thing is the negative for them is if you lose a big tenant, a lot of the value is in that tenant. So you're going to lose a bit of value until you find another big tenant. Finding another big tenant isn't like a 1 month process like it is a little 500K or $1 million one, like I mentioned before. It'll most likely be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. So even though you're going to have the tenant for longer because they might be there for 15 years versus the $1 million ones where it's only kind of 3, 4, 5 years, for instance, before it turns over, you've then got a longer vacancy period. So just to summarize, I know I've rambled quite a lot on this question. It comes down to a case-by-case basis. There's a pro and con of each one. A good deal is a good deal, no matter what the price point, and just assess each deal on its own merits.
Yeah, it was a good answer. Good ramble.
I told you I've answered that question a lot, Andrew.
I actually just want to break down the calculations because it does depend on the person and what they want. So if you're putting down $1 million deposit and you say you're getting a 60% LVR, the calculation would be $1 million divided by 40 times 100, which would leave you with a potential purchase price of $2.5 million. And going on the other side, if you put down 330K deposits for 3 properties, that would be 330K divided by 40 times 100, which gives you $825,000 budget, right? So there's a big difference in those 2 types of properties, as Steve said. So if you're an active investor and you want to get your hands dirty and you want to find undervalued property that has a lot of opportunity, the larger property at 2.5 million is going to be a much better option for you because you're going to be able to find a property that you can work and you can add value to, and it could possibly be multi-tenanted, which would reduce the risk. But if you are not an active investor, you're a passive investor and you just literally want to have a set and forget, then the $825,000 property is probably going to be a better solution for you because you have 3 tenants and you literally there won't be much value add. I mean, that's a case by case basis, but there won't be too much value add that you can find on a property of that size, because basically everyone can afford that property, and it'll be more like a strata title warehouse or something like that, which Steve just spoke about. So as Steve said, it'd be like putting in a mezzanine would be a great value add. But other than that, unless you're finding a very under-rented property, those would be really the only couple of value add strategies. So it really depends if you're passive or you're an active investor. Personally, I would go for the larger property, but each to their own.
Yeah, it's funny you said, Andrew. I'm actually the opposite of you. I'm actually a very passive investor, as you know. Like, all my properties are complete set and forget, because with my lifestyle of traveling around the world, like I've done 20 countries in the last 2 years, I don't really have the mental capacity to run my business and do that on the side. So it's more of a nest egg for me. I want that set and forget passive income. So like you said, it depends on your personality. And even you said 60% LVR, that's you being quite conservative. Like, at the moment, you can actually get 80% LVRs with some lenders. There's a few lenders like ANZ and BOQ, Liberty, Suncorp, all doing 80% loans. So you can leverage based on your risk profile and what you're actually trying to achieve over what time frame.